Hello, my name is Adam Binet, and I am the lead of the Center of Excellence for Digital Innovation at the Education and Early Childhood Development Department at the Government of New Brunswick. And today I'm joined with a graduate of our high school system here in New Brunswick, Colby Weldon. Colby was a student at Harrison Trimble in Moncton, New Brunswick. And Colby's joining me today to highlight some of his experiences in high school, through post-secondary, and into a career in technology. So thanks for joining me today, Colby, and I'll let you get started.
All right. So again, as Adam said, my name is Colby Weldon, and I'm going to talk about how IT is important to me. So to start with a bit about me, my name is Colby Weldon. I grew up and went to school in New Brunswick, Canada. I've always been interested in IT since middle school and have continued past it in post-secondary, as well as in my job that I'm working on right now. I'm currently working as an application support specialist for a large packaging company with 2 plants, one in New Brunswick and then the other in PEI. My responsibilities as an application support specialist are to update server applications, participate in disaster recovery tests, go live and post-go live support for changes, and all that kind of stuff. So a bit about how I developed an interest in IT. So from when I was a lot younger, I enjoyed playing PC games as a kid, where I learned about the basics of Windows and hosting servers. So a good example of that is Minecraft, because that's hosted by Java, and you kind of learn your command line arguments and your configurations that way. I eventually became interested in programming and automation to save time on repetitive tasks. So you can do that in things like forms in C# or Visual Studio Code. I took an interest in design using programs like Adobe Premiere Pro, Photoshop, etc. for those kind of projects in school. And I was always very interested in how things work. So hardware, like building a computer, how server hardware works, that kind of thing. What contributes to a better user experience, and then networking, so how things are interconnected and how you can link people together with that server equipment. So to talk a bit about some of my high school IT experiences. So I took a course in programming, so I learned Visual Studio, Java, and a little bit about C# in there as well. I took a course in digital production, so that's where I learned how to use Paint.net in the Adobe suite of products. So as mentioned in the previous slides, your Premiere Pro, your Photoshop, your Audition, that kind of thing. Towards the top right there, you actually see one of the posters that I made for one of my digital production projects. I took Infotech, so the Office suite of products, mainly focused on Word and Excel and how that would be used in the workplace. And then I likewise did a co-op in cybersecurity. So the main focus of that was the CompTIA Security Plus certification and going for that, or in the competencies surrounding that, I should say. And that's the certificate on the bottom right that I got for doing that.
Perfect. And you co-op, remind folks, Colby, as a 1-credit virtual co-op, correct?
Yep, that was a 1-credit co-op.
And so that allowed you flexibility in your grade 12 year to just do it as a 1-credit versus a traditional 2 or 3 credit hour co-op. And through that, you were actually linked up with an industry mentor who worked in IT and cybersecurity, correct? That was based out of Fredericton?
Yep, that was Mr. Asaf's entire job, was security.
Okay, excellent. And so through that entire process, did you enjoy having an industry professional to be able to connect with and to help you go through some of the learning that you did?
I thought that was a big help, as opposed to having, say you have a class with a bunch of students in there, where that was a lot different than the co-op, because the co-op was just kind of me and Mr. Asaf, and we were able to go through all that stuff. And if I had specific questions about the specific content that I'm working on, how that applied to me, or how I could further build upon that in the future if I was curious, that's how he was able to answer that, and kind of compare that to how he would have did that himself.
Right, and that's a pretty neat model, because talking to an industry expert or subject matter expert is probably meaningful for a student to talk the lingo and that sort of thing. And how did it end up playing out? Did you connect, obviously you probably emailed or chatted, did you video conference every now and then? How did that look for you as a typical week?
So it kind of varied. It seems like it was as much as I really wanted it to be. So every week, we usually touch base every Friday. So depending on what was going on, I would give him updates on, this is where I'm at. This is how far I think I'm going to get in the next week or so. And this is where I'm stuck, or what I'm not necessarily understanding. Yeah. And so the entire week leading up to that was kind of just me independently studying, or independently going over the material.
Excellent. And so he could provide some resources and materials to go check out, different online courses to probably pursue, or to take readings and that sort of thing, YouTube series. I'm sure there was all kinds of different things that you did. And like you said, I think one of the important thing is you had that opportunity for a one-on-one Whereas sometimes in a classroom, with a traditional classroom with 25 or 28 students in it and one teacher, that one-on-one interaction might not happen as frequently. And so it's nice to know that through a co-op like this, there's a meaningful takeaway for a student, and it prepped you or helped to prep you at least to actually go and take this exam and get a real certification that you could put on your resume. And when you go to apply for jobs, this is something that places are probably looking for or are happy to see. Okay, excellent. I'll let you continue. Yeah.
All right. So moving on to my post-secondary experiences. So I took the network administration course at NBCC Moncton. So in that course, we learned about Windows Server, and there's the Windows Server 2016. That was the newest one by the time I was doing it. So command line scripting, so Bash in your Linux and Unix environments, PowerShells, just like the command line itself in Windows, and all that kind of stuff. We did programming in C#. We did web design, so HTML and CSS. In the top there, you see one of the little websites there we had to make as a project. Did Cisco networking, so that was focused on mainly the CCNA kind of curriculum. So the intent was to have enough competency to go for that certification by the end of the course. We took ITIL, so ITIL Foundations was like the kind of focus there. So hardware, it was mainly focused on the curriculum for the CompTIA A+ certification, but a lot of it kind of extended out to what we would be expected to do in the workplace, right? So you're taking apart your computers, you're looking at your printers, you're using ticketing systems, all that kind of thing. And then we used Linux. So that was the distribution that we used was Red Hat Enterprise Linux, although I did a couple projects using Arch. And that was mainly focused on the Bash terminal and how that's configured, how you can automate things like user creation, all that kind of stuff. And then as part of the business solution group of the company, I'd use a lot of these skills to improve the way people work today. So and also likewise to ensure the applications I support run smoothly. So how people can better optimize what they're doing today.
Right, and that's an important thing that folks probably in IT are very aware of, right? How do we actually use these software tools or hardware to make our day-to-day lives, our professional lives, with the job that we're at, a little bit easier? Or as a student, is there things you can automate in your daily life? But also even in your home, in your personal life, are there different tools that you use? And it's important to highlight that, I think. So, and it looks like you had a good variety of exposure to a lot of different things. And I'm glad to see like the CompTIA A+, for instance, which is loosely what the grade 11 cybersecurity and technical support 11.0 class is based around or geared toward, to have students be able to take that course and potentially get their A+ certification as a basic certification to have. And it's also modeled a little bit off of the IT essentials as well through Cisco. But you're right, that basics of hardware, software, operating systems, a little bit of networking, right? And those are all, like you said, foundational skills that you need to scaffold. Because if you look at the list that you've talked about here, it's a pretty wide breadth of things that you've done. But like you said, it helps you every day in your job, probably, right? Cool.
That's kind of the thing about it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just one thing. And that's the thing that's important for people in technology to understand, right? It's, if we're going to be a programmer, it's good to be a programmer and learn lots about computer science, but there's also value in understanding how the actual hardware works and interacts with itself, with everything inside of it and the operating systems. Fundamentals of networking is really important, especially like, I know you referenced video gaming earlier. Well, a lot of our students love to video game. And a lot of them inherently know a little bit more actually about networking, I find. They understand things like ping and lag a little bit. They understand that it's better to, at home to have like their Ethernet plugged directly into the console, for instance. Just simple little things that their mind is already kind of aware of, and they might not even know about it. So it's, and I really enjoy that you just want to know how things work. And I feel like I'm somebody that's similar to that. And if you're a student out there that you're curious about how things work, IT is a wonderful place for you to spend some time exploring. So I'll let you continue, Colby. Yeah, sorry.
All right, and so the last thing I was going to talk about, and probably the most important, is why to take IT. So why should people be interested in this, and why is it something to consider as a career path? So the primary thing here is that it teaches troubleshooting and problem solving, and most importantly, critical thinking. So it's not just one path to get to there. It's to get to the solution. There's multiple different solutions, each with varying difficulty to implement, and each with different degrees of success, I could say. Some of them are more effective than others. And it's very applicable. So IT is at the core of everything in the modern world, right? Most things that are around you probably have a computer in them in some way or another. It's constantly changing and very diverse. So there's a lot of different things to do. it's like you're not just programming and we're in a dark room on a green screen, right? There's a lot of different degrees of how deep you want to go and how far you want to cover. And the fourth one is that it makes life easier, right? The more you know about computers, the more you're able to automate, the more you're able to get stuff done and produce more work.
Absolutely. And I think a couple points that I would say on that, the last one, and that's the main selling point that I try personally to convince students and teachers and other friends and family in my life. If you could take the time or find the time to learn some of the tools, it'll actually work out in the long run to make your life a little bit easier. Even basics of using things like Outlook and a calendar, or using Word or PowerPoint properly. As you probably have come to understand, that some people aren't necessarily overly well versed in those things. And for somebody like yourself to complete a project, say a PowerPoint that we're looking at right now, would probably take you a fraction of the time somebody that doesn't have a lot of experience doing it. So at the end of the day, it can be a time-saving endeavor for people, and actually to take some stress away, right? I've seen, the password meltdown. I've seen and I'm sure you've seen all kinds of interesting things. Oh, my computer just won't work, and, you shake your fist at it, but that doesn't do anything. It's better to, if you could take the time and learn some things, it will help. And to another thing that you said, like constantly changing. And we are in it, like you said, your second point, IT is at the core of everything in the modern world. The pandemic has certainly exacerbated that and shown that we all need to know these digital tools to some extent and use them. And they will continue by and large to be part of our daily lives, right? And it's something, again, if you can just come to terms with and accept and try and get good at it, it's going to make things better. Yeah. So, okay, so I'll let you continue.
And that's pretty much it for my presentation there. So
okay,
thank you for having me.
Excellent. Well, this has been a nice chat with a former New Brunswick high school graduate from Harrison Trimble, who did end up taking the mentorship virtual co-op for a credit in high school, went on to NBCC, did a 2-year program, and is now out in the IT sector working. Pretty quick turnaround, right? From the time you graduate high school to the time you have a job, just a couple of years, really, right? And so, and hopefully other students watching this think about this as a legitimate pathway, because in this role, you're just one aspect of IT, right? This is just one aspect, and there's so many more. If you were really into the programming or coding and app development, maybe that's a whole other stream. But I do appreciate, Colby, you taking the time to meet today, and continued success in your very young and budding career, and all the best.